Inflation is a bitch. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My character just went shopping in Mournhold for some Clockwork citrus fillet and was appalled at the prices. So I'm here to discuss if you're trying to build your character and trying to decide on a commonly used food, Clockwork citrus fillet versus, or perhaps if you're a stamina character, Artaeum takeaway broth. These two foods are commonly recommended for stamina and magicka characters, more so in PvP than PvE, but even in PvE sometimes, and they are quite expensive. So what are we talking about? So here we have these two foods. They are very analogous. They are simply analogous. One is for stamina characters primarily, and one is for magic. They both provide the same amount of health, the same amount of health recovery, and then the equivalent amount of magic or stamina, 3080, as well as the corresponding recovery stat, 338 and 338. So they are used often in PvP, particularly because they provide a balance of multiple stats, a decent amount of kind of everything, rather than giving you a large amount of one thing but lacking in other departments. But there are two alternatives that are significantly cheaper, and the question is, are these two expensive foods here worth the extra cost compared to their cheaper analogs, which is, for the stamina side, you have Dubious, Camoran Throne, with the stats you see there, and on the magicka side, you have Witchmother's Potent Brew. These two foods provide the exact same stats, but in slightly less amounts, except for the health recovery, in which they provide 0. So to get into it a little more, the difference in magic and stamina is 3080 for these two foods, as you can see, 3080 versus 2822. Okay, so that is a difference of only 258 less magic or stamina. On the health side, you have 3057 versus 3326. If we go back here, 3326. So that's a difference of 269 health. So to me, those two numbers are quite small and pretty much insignificant. On the recovery, it's even less of a difference. Here you have 338 stamina and magic recovery versus 311. So that's a difference of 27 recovery. Obviously, these can be sometimes scaled up a little bit, but the difference is 258 of your main stat, 269 health, and 27 health, 27 magic or stamina recovery, which to me, those are very small numbers, okay? Slight differences. As far as the health recovery, these two do give you 0 versus 406 for the other two. But in PvP especially, as we all know, Battle Spirit nerfs health recovery by 50%. So if we take my character here, who is a PvP geared out character, 365 plus about 400, you're looking at 760 health recovery cut in half, puts you back down to 365 or 350 or so. So is 350 health recovery really worth anything in PvP? I would say no. And if you're a vampire, as many people are, it's going to be reduced even more. So health recovery in PvP, I think most people agree, is kind of a dead stat. Not worth really anything. So that 406 health recovery that you're getting from the two more expensive foods, Clockwork and Artaeum, is pretty much insignificant and irrelevant. In PvE, if you're a tank stacking health recovery, it might perhaps have some value, but for a typical DPS character in PvE, not really worth it, I think. So the question is then, well, what's the difference in cost? Is it small enough that I might want to min-max and buy the more expensive food? So if we just pick a random dude and go shopping, I usually shop in Mournhold, so that's where I am. 3,900, 4,000, and this is, I think, the price will vary a little bit depending on which vendor you're looking at and what day it is, but it's about 4,000 pretty consistently. And if we look at Clockwork, how much is Clockwork? I think this is the guy, 4,000, okay, so about the same, 4,000. And what is the cost of the cheaper alternatives? And I already know it because I looked before, but it is about 130, and it can be as low as 100. I've seen it right around the corner in the next vendor. I'll show you. I usually shop in Mournhold. That's the only reason I picked Mournhold. But what is the other thing called? Dubious. 100 gold pieces. Okay, so about 40 times less expensive. Let's see. Price a little more here. 100, 180. Okay. I'm not doing a very good job of navigating the menus, but oh my god, apologies. Clockwork, Citrus Filet, 3,800. And what is it, Artaeum? 5,000. So something, these two foods, Artaeum, Takeaway Broth, and Clockwork Citrus Filet, are something like 48 to 50 times more expensive than the cheaper alternatives. Now, are you getting 48 times more stats? Obviously, no. Are you getting even double the stats? No. You're getting 250 more health, more magic or stamina, 269 more health, and 27 more of your recovery stat. So in conclusion, I would say, in my opinion, unless you're flush with gold and have millions of gold, I typically need my gold for other things and do not want to spend 5,000 gold every 2 hours just to keep my food buff up in PvP. And I think when builds are, most people when they do build videos, they recommend these nice expensive foods because they're good, but they don't ever mention, in my experience, there's no mention ever made that there are cheaper alternatives for those who don't have millions of gold. And if someone looks at a build like that, they may think, wow, this build is going to be hard to run. I'm going to have to spend a lot of gold just to use my food. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not really true. You can use the cheaper alternatives, spare yourself 5,000 gold every 2 hours, and be essentially as effective because the difference in the stats is so small. So that's my analysis. Hopefully you agree. Feel free to comment if you disagree or like what I've said or have further questions. Thank you for watching. Peace.